When Aussies face a blocked pirate site, 59% simply give up and don't try legal options. What have I been saying all along? I myself used to be a pretty prolific pirate when I was broke. If you stopped me from pirating something, I wouldn't have gone out and legally bought it. I was pirating it because I was broke in the first place. How is that a lost sale? And this just proves it. Almost 60%, 3/5 of people. If you stop them from being able to pirate something they want, they'll just move on to something else. Like, oh, I guess I don't need this. Now, I'm basically like this when it comes to all of my entertainment these days. I don't really care that much when something I used to love gets woke, or they start censoring. Like, oh, come on, RGE, you're still getting 95% of what you want. Why are you whining? Like, well, I could get 100% of what I want from these other guys, so I don't need you. So I don't even view it as a loss anymore when something I used to like gets destroyed, because instead I view that as an opportunity. Like, oh, sweet. Now I have all this time that freed up and all this money that freed up. I could discover other new fun things that I would have previously missed. And that's how it was like when I was a pirate as well. Sometimes there were things I couldn't pirate. And I tried like maybe 5-10 minutes. And if I didn't find what I wanted, I moved on to the next thing. It's like, I don't care about this thing anymore then, whatever. And then once I got money, I went back and I bought a lot of the better stuff that I pirated. And those that made sure I couldn't pirate their stuff, they never saw my money because I just moved on. It's like, I don't care about this shit. But totally a lost sale, guys. In this case, you could actually argue that preventing me from pirating their shit is what resulted in a lost sale. So many things that I've spent thousands of dollars on over the course of my life, I wouldn't have even known about if I wouldn't have come across them on pirate sites before. According to research commissioned by the Australian government, 59% of people faced with a blocked pirate site are more likely to simply give up than try other means to get content. However, VPN knowledge is already entrenched in Australian society, with almost half of internet users aware of what they can do and what advantages they bring to the table. And this is the primary reason they're trying to go after encryption so hard. Governments do not like it when they can't control what their citizens can see and buy and all that stuff. After years of work and changes to the law, in current year -5, a Australian court agreed to order the blocking of several pirate sites headed up by the infamous Pirate Bay. Since then, movie companies including Roadshow Films, Foxtel, Disney, Paramount, Columbia, 20th Century Fox have returned to court many times to have more and more sites blocked. Who could have predicted this would happen? Oh, come on, guys, we're only blocking like one site. How could you even defend them? Look, they're evil pirates. And then you give them the one. Like, oh, great, now can you block these other couple thousand sites we don't like as well? You give them an inch and they'll take a mile. The strategy is also being deployed by the music industry, targeting regular streaming and download platforms as well as stream ripping portals. Once again, proving me correct. I've been saying since I pretty much started on YouTube that the two biggest enemies of the internet are the MPA and the RIAA. The film and music industries are the primary reason why the internet just keeps getting worse and worse. They are even worse than the government when it comes to online censorship and all these bogus issues we have to deal with. So in case anyone thinks that it may be a bit harsh that I'm celebrating the deaths of these industries because of the government lockdown, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Because if it wasn't for these industries, the internet would be so much better. They could not disappear fast enough. I hope the movie and music industries go completely bankrupt and disappear off the face of the planet. They can always be replaced by better indies anyway. So there has always been a question mark over how consumers will respond to blocking. The entertainment industries believe it can only lead to more sales, but hardcore pirates are less convinced. A new study published by the Australian government now sheds a little more light on what happens when people are presented with access denied messages. Since current year -6, the Australian government Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communications has commissioned annual surveys into users' internet activities. This includes the consumption of music, movies, and TV shows, video games, and more recently, live sports. The latest consumer copyright infringement survey of current year -1 also provides detail on what happens when the blocks are encountered. Yeah, people realize that they have way more choice than ever these days. And whatever it is they were blocked from seeing, they decide they don't need to see. The survey covers the habits of 2,421 Australian internet users aged 12 plus in the 3 months preceding June current year -1. During the period, the vast majority, 76%, reported that no blocked sites had been encountered, while 12% were unsure. The remaining 12 said they had indeed faced ISP blocks and responded in various ways. Interestingly, 59% said that rather than take any other action, they simply gave up on trying to access the site and content they were looking for. Just over 1 in 5, 21%, said they sought alternative lawful access to the content, while 6% and 2% admitted to looking for free and paid pirate content, respectively. Around 12% admitted to taking action to bypass the blockade. So, given the nature of this survey and given how these users know the amount of spying Western governments do on their citizens, something tells me that the 21% said that they sought lawful access were probably just covering their ass. I doubt they actually meant it. However, when seeking to evade a website block, 47% of bypass-inclined users said they turned to VPNs, with just over a third turning to a proxy website. Just over a quarter said they utilized a search engine to find an alternative site, while 14%, with 14% changing the network proxy on their browsers. The responses added up to more than 100% since some users utilized multiple techniques. Makes sense. I've used all of the above myself, actually. It all works. I mean, VPNs are the easiest way, but these governments are trying to crack down on VPNs. So what we may end up having to do in the future, though, is you may have to rent a server in another country and then just remote into that server and surf the web from that, or you use that VPN or use that server as a VPN VPN host. There are things you can do. Yeah, Tor is good because it handles a lot of that for you, but it's slow. Those who had not faced a block in the previous 3 months were asked what they would do if they encountered one. A significant number, 71%, said they would simply give up, and 20% reported they would seek lawful access. Just 7% said they would attempt to bypass the block, with the majority, 53%, suggesting search engines as a solution and 31% indicating they would use a VPN. Yeah, again, all those saying that they would seek lawful access and denying that they would continue trying to pirate stuff, they know that this survey came from the government. Do you really think they're going to answer honestly? I know damn well if I got a survey from the government that was asking me about all the illegal activities that I may want to engage in, I would say no across the board. Like, oh yeah, if you had a friend who was a drug dealer and you could get some nice freaking weed right now, I mean, would you do it? Oh, of course not. I've never did anything, never plan on doing anything. Nope, just uptight citizen here, Mr. Government. I don't know what you're talking about. And then they'd be touting the results of these surveys. Like, oh, look, 100% of the people living in this community full of drug addicts say they would not do drugs. When comparing those who had sourced unlawful content in the previous 3 months to those who hadn't, infringers are more likely than non-infringers to have encountered a block, 21 versus 8%. However, infringers were much less likely to give up than their non-pirating counterparts, 47 versus 71%. Interestingly, pirates were much less likely to turn to search engines to find alternatives to bypass blockades, 44% versus 68% of non-infringers. No shit. If you're a pirate and you know what you're doing, you know that search engines are useless. Or at least Google is useless. Because Google actively censors, I mean, they call it curating, but we know it's censorship. the stuff they don't like or the stuff the government tells them to. I wouldn't be surprised if they even reported attempted searches of certain content to the government. That half of all respondents are aware of VPNs is interesting in itself, but the finding that almost a quarter have actively used one is perhaps more so. Overall, however, just 12% of respondents said they were currently using a VPN, but the majority were not using them for infringing purposes. They're not going to admit to it. Almost half, 48%, said they were using a VPN to add security to their connections, communications, and internet browsing. Over a third said they were using them for work. Given the numbers, however, it's clear that many users have multiple uses for their VPN. More than a quarter said they use VPNs to access content from other countries that is unavailable in Australia or otherwise geo-blocked. A similar number said they use their VPN to access content for free, while just under 1 in 10 said they utilize one to gain access to content for a reasonable price. Yes, region locking. Yet another relic of the MPA and RIAA in particular. Although the video game industry is pretty notorious for this as well, that they do not want to give up on their old legacy model. So under the old legacy licensing model, you licensed, say you made a video game, you licensed it to some other company for another region. That other company gets super butthurt when people in their region bypass them and go directly to the source. The anime localization industry here in the West, in particular, really fucking hates it when we go directly to Japan and skip them. We wouldn't have to do that if they just gave us what we wanted, but what are the odds of that ever happening? Again, there are differences between consumers who pirate content and those who don't. Those who had obtained content unlawfully in the previous 3 months, infringers, are more likely to have ever used a VPN, 44 versus 22%, or 40 versus 22%, and more likely to be using a VPN service now, 20 versus 11%. That more people overall are using VPNs to access paid legal content from overseas or to obtain content at fair prices than pirating is a reasonably clear signal to the entertainment companies that problems still exist and need to be addressed. And you know, the knowing the RIAA and MPA, the lesson they're going to take is we need to lobby harder to make VPNs harder to access and use. These motherfuckers are responsible for most of the bullshit we deal with on the internet right now. And they're not going to stop. They had the option to get a better business model for decades, and they've opted to not change themselves and instead try to bring the internet down to their level. And they've slowly but surely been succeeding. So you know that that's the only lesson these shit stains are going to take. Like, oh, I guess this means we got to lobby harder to ban VPNs now. And you know the government is going to be all on board with this because the government is not happy that more people are resorting to VPNs to get around their censorship. So it's funny how that works, isn't it? The government censors the internet and then does a survey and finds out, like, oh shit, all of our people are using VPNs. Why is that? We need to censor more. Indeed, if this gap in supply has been addressed earlier, it's certainly possible that much less than half of our respondents would have been aware of VPNs in the first place and might not be using them today in other scenarios, including bypassing pirate site blockades. Yeah, this is like a 50-50 blame right here. Obviously, the MPA and RIAA share, they have the lion's share of the blame, but governments are another big problem. I am not going to let some fucking professional bureaucrats dictate to me what content I'm allowed to see on the internet. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.